Let's get started. Today we would like to share some security research we did on AITM, phishing attacks. The problem, how big it is, prevention, detection, just things we found out since January we started with this security research. So who are we? My name is Wesley. My colleague is Rick van Duijn. We are both co-founders of Zolder, a cybersecurity company, and we have mainly experience in pen testing, over 10 years. So we've seen a lot of companies checking out the vulnerabilities they have and advising them on solving those issues. But since the start of Zolder, we also started creating more defensive solutions, such as our app called ATIC, which we use to protect Microsoft 365 environments. And that's also why we did security research on this part. So our goal with ATIC is to protect a lot of companies on a big scale. So just the basic stuff, not a nation state attack, but just the configuration of your MFA, monitoring with Azure Sentinel. We want to protect a lot of companies once and have a big impact like that. The problem we've seen is that we've seen a big increase of MFA AITM attacks. And the issue is here that they are bypassing the MFA on your Microsoft 365 account. And the interesting part is that we as a cybersecurity community pushed a lot of companies to use MFA because that would solve any phishing attacks. But now the cyber criminals are moving to AITM, which allows them to bypass MFA. For example, the push notification on your phone or a text message is pretty easy to bypass using AITM. Just some history. In the early days it was pretty simple, just phishing username, password. You could just spray a lot of emails, spray a lot of text messages, and you could sleep and then just wait until the results came in. So at that time, phishing was pretty easy because you only needed the username and a password. Well, that's why a lot of companies introduced things like MFA, a second factor, which makes it harder for you to break into the accounts. Well, a next step we've seen is, for example, uadmin, which was used by a lot of Dutch cyber criminals to do the marktplaatsfraude or WhatsApp fraude. This was the next step. For example, they were trying to phish the ING bank, which also used some second factors, and they were luring the victim into the phish, for example, on the left page. And when the victim fills in the username and password, the victim will wait, and the real criminal will log in at the ING with your credentials and just give the response back to you as a victim. So this was a manual way of bypassing the extra steps, the multi-factor authentication. This is, by the way, still being used by the Dutch criminals because this phishing panel is sold all on Telegram, shared for €50 or something. So this is still used and doesn't require a lot of technical knowledge. So, and it's still effective. But in 2017, 2018, this tool was released, Evil Jinx. I remember it. We were pen testing. So we, of course, dived into the tool, but still at that time it was quite small. It wasn't really becoming big at once. But at this time, we've seen a big growth in the usage of this tool, but also the usage of the technique that this tool is using. So this is a tool that performs AITM attacks, and you have, of course, many more, but this one is open source and available to everyone.
So we asked ourselves the question, why now? So we've seen a huge increase in attacks against Microsoft 365. We've seen a huge increase in similar phishing attacks against other services like Booking.com. But the technique and the tools have been available since 2017. And we've been using them a bit. And it's been used in pen testing services. And for us, the main thing is there's SaaS services that provide the tooling, that provide modification if you require it. You pay each week or each month, and you get a nice phishing panel. Another reason is obviously more and more MFA, which is great. It forces these types of attackers to change their tactics, which at least costs some effort. But since it's all SaaSified now, that introduces quite a problem. And more importantly, it just works on large scale. So where initially we could fish 1,000 or 10,000 users and just go to sleep, wake up, and get like username, password, and then later you could use that. Then you go to like the banking style fraud where you're manually like a mule copy and pasting everything. And now you can go back to sleep again. Well, not entirely. You still need to act like semi-quick, but it allows you to do things at scale, which is always interesting and important for criminals. And it's what they do. The attacks we see are like, not to be unfriendly towards those types of people, but most of the problem creators are not the people that are really skilled. They learn a trick and they just keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. And with these SaaSified services, this creates that problem. The current threats? Nice. So, current threats. My slides. Well, as I've said before, there's been a huge increase in, especially Microsoft 365 AITM attacks, phishing at a large scale, allowing back fraud to be more successful. Microsoft announced like 111% increase in token replay. Well, that's both like reverse proxy attacks and just malware stealing tokens from the browser or your system. But it's been growing and growing. And you can see that. So if you like urlscan.io, which is if you hobby around with like, it's a Shodan Safari, but for phishing sites. And it allows you to search for like favicon hashes or like a specific CSS file or a specific URL. And it will increase. You can just see like minutes ago, new M365 phishing pages pop up. I've mentioned booking.com already. And that problem initially was mostly stealer malware getting onto the system of the hotel owner. And now you see that they've switched tactics because like malware and antivirus is like pretty annoying, but phishing, especially if it's like somebody else hosting everything for you, is pretty great. And if you start looking into like phishing pages for booking.com hotel operators, it's just funny how much. And it's always something like complaint issue, whatever the fuck, or attendee or B&B confirmation. And all of these point to something like this, which is enter like a login page not for the end user, but for the hotel owner. And this is the first step in a whole like supply chain thing where if you have access to the hotels, you can have access to the like all the bookings, and that allows you to do stuff like this. So this is something my colleague Eric, he had a hotel booked in, I think it's Paris, where he got a notification via the system telling him that his booking wasn't completely correct, and then linking him to this page. And the funny thing is, like, the price is correct, they have all the information, they have your booking number. So this supply chain allows attackers to do like the best type of phishing, which is lots and lots of pre-information, allowing you to fall for this. And it's funny because they're actually abusing the internal booking.com like messaging. So it would be just interesting to have like a live feed of all the messages going from and to hotel owners and users, because I feel you might find lots and lots of the same messages there. But this problem, where Microsoft has been actively trying to fight this, Booking seems to have a bigger issue. Mostly because if you look at the Microsoft pages, there's lots of like bot filtering tricks. There's lots of like the attackers are doing some effort to not get detected, and the Booking.com are like YOLO. Just look for the favicon hash, and you'll find anything everywhere. So it seems that Booking could learn from Microsoft in this regard.
I'm still curious if it's a specific group who's using this attack.
I feel it's many. Like there's somebody figured this out and then it spread. Like anything with this type, like back to the farmer, just like plow on, do the same thing over and over again. And then, well, in the end, you always have to fill out your credit card information. So that's where everything ends up. Cool.
We would like to explain something about the implementations because we created a detection system, which we will explain later on. But that also gave us some insights into implementations that are going around. And this is specific to Microsoft 365. Well, of course, you have Evil Jinx, the tool it's used a lot because it's available on GitHub. The only problem is if you now spin Evil Jinx instance on a VPS, it's immediately spotted and flagged. So you have to do some tricks to fix that. But that's also why cybercriminals are using other solutions such as the SaaS solutions. Another interesting implementation is the VNC in the browser. It's already there for a long time as well, but I just think it's an interesting implementation because they are just streaming a VNC session in a browser, which looks like a real that you're visiting a real website. So I just think that's an interesting approach to implement it. They have Evil Puppet, which is another implementation also available on GitHub, not really maintained, but it's that's an implementation. With Evil Jinx, you need specific fishlets. For example, you have a Microsoft fishlet, a Google fishlet, which just modifies a little bit for the specific target. And the Evil Puppet is an attempt to just make it generic for all targets. So that's an interesting approach as well. The last two we've seen using our detection system. For example, we've seen an implementation using PHP, which is the fourth one. And we saw some interesting references to a really lame and old web shell. So he was using the proxy functionality from a web shell. They are using entire AITM framework, which was quite interesting because you can see what the code exactly is doing and stuff like that. And the last one we also investigated, which was also interesting because they are using Cloudflare Workers, which is serverless computing on Cloudflare. You just have to upload some code, and that code is executed by Cloudflare. So they will fix the web server. They will fix all the servers and stuff like that. We've seen using our detection system that there are quite a lot of AITM phishing websites hosted on domains ending with workers.dev. So that was the trigger, like, okay, how are they doing this? How are they phishing you using Cloudflare? We didn't have the code because we didn't have access to the Cloudflare account of the attacker. But the option we had was like, okay, let's just build this ourselves in Cloudflare and see how hard it is. And in the end, it was quite pretty simple. And here you can see the implementation live. It's about 150 lines of code. We also published this on GitHub. So you can just upload the code to Cloudflare and you can perform this attack yourself. And it's just forwarding all the requests to Microsoft. And then it will send the username and password to Teams and, of course, the cookies, which you can use to log in as the victim. Here you can see if you take the cookies, put them in your browser, and you're simply logged in as the victim. That shows how easy it is. It took like a few hours. So it's pretty easy as well to build. The code is on GitHub on the link we've shared.
Yeah, we've become part of the problem now.
I don't know.
Don't start the OST debate.
Also, we've seen some half implementations. So they are not really forwarding all the requests that Microsoft is sending and receiving. But they, for example, only load the background image or the logo of the company. So they don't really care about the rest of the layout, the CSS that is able in Microsoft. I will come later back on this because this has some trouble with our detections. And this is really, they use a lot of CAPTCHAs to protect our phishing websites, and it is also really effective. For example, this is Cloudflare Turnstile, which is pretty cool. You don't have to click anything. It's a CAPTCHA which just loads for a while, is verifying, and it just takes a few seconds, and it will pass through if you're a human, and it will block you if you're a bot. So we see a lot of criminals using this to hide their, for example, Evil Jinx instance, and it's really effective as well.
It's so prevalent that we ended up deciding that if a new domain pops up from our detection, and we then try to visit it, we get the turnstile, it's probably phishing. So we're just using this as an indicator now, instead of the actual site. Yeah, something about the actors. As I've said before, there's a SaaS type service, and there's more and more actors out there. These are some of the ones we've come into. But the interesting thing now is that initially you had like a very limited set of SaaS providers, and they were like it's a monthly or weekly pay type deal, and there's no like growing of it because the thing with the SaaS service is like it runs somewhere else. You can't like steal it, you can't keep it. So after 2 weeks you have to like repay. So it's a great model for them, but also it contains the problem a bit. So what I'm now seeing is on the different forums there's more and more providers saying like, hey, we can build you a reverse proxy for any website you like, and you get the code, which means if the Dutch like bank phishing scene says anything about what's going to happen here, it's that the moment you receive like the phishing panel.zip for like $50, you open it, you Ctrl-H and replace everything with like my lead panel, and then you start selling that for like $50 to recoup any of the cost you had for buying it. And that's the same thing that's gonna be happening here. This is one of the providers. It's Evil Proxy. And the funny thing here was that they're also like doing like a weekly type deal, so you can see it. And in the do I have lasers? No, I have like switch screen. Almost broke it. So on the left, you can see like 10, 20, or 31 days, and then the price, and then whatever you want to fish. And the interesting thing in that one is that it's also targeting like PyP, npm.js, and Ruby gems, which would be pretty awesome to do like supply chain attacks on whatever you might like. But here it's still you have to like talk to someone and then get someone to deploy something. Like yesterday, I found this one, which feels more and more skiddy to me, which is always fun. It's Fish X Proxy, and this one gives you like a whole manual, and you get an app. So meaning that this is something you could like probably open and reverse, and then it's your app, and you call it, I don't know, Fish Rig Proxy. It's $20 cheaper, and then the race to the bottom starts, and then in the end people start giving it out for free. Problem grows. The funny thing with Fish X Proxy was that they had like a Telegram bot that allows you to do the payment, do the setup, and it helps you through the process, like deposit the Bitcoin here, do the thing, all that razzmatazz. And then there's Tycoon, one of the bigger ones, to be honest. In the right, you can see my latest of speak. We just wanted to know like how much and where's the money going, please. Then nothing happened, but we did get access to a panel. And the funny thing with Tycoon, is that if you have an organization that doesn't use Linux on like endpoint or on desktops, it's pretty easy to detect because all their like login happens from Linux systems. So if you just look at the sign-in logs and you filter out Android, it's not very hard to detect. But the thing is, you just don't send the money, but send the money, and then you get this, and there's nothing you really have to do in order to actually get access. We looked at some of the, so we wondered like how much money are they making, and for Tycoon specifically, we've been able to like, it depends on the day obviously, but it's like 660K in a year and a bit. So it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely not ransomware money. But at the same time, I feel it's quite a lot of more risk-free. It's more risk-free. And, I mean, you don't have to do much. I mean, it's a SaaS service. It's just like, press the button, works. And then you get 660K. Interesting. One of the addresses is like a USDT address. And you can see that all the money is going to Binance in the end. So he's sending all his money to Binance. And I'm not a forensic person or related to the cops, but I feel that's pretty easy to figure out who this is. as long as he's not using somebody that's giving him their a Binance account. But as far as I know your customer is still in effect, and it's pretty decently you could be able to figure this out. Cool.
Of course, the most important, prevention and detection. Let's get started with prevention. Well, it is, compared to others, it is fairly easy on Microsoft 365. But the downside is that it requires some licenses, the P1 and P2 from AAD. And there are two main options. You can enforce phishing-resistant MFA, so passkeys and YubiKeys, for example. The downside is it is not really user-friendly yet. I don't think you can get a company with 1,000 people all use YubiKeys, and that's going to work well. Another option is device compliance, but this may have, you may have the same issue. It may be hard to implement as well, because you're going to block devices that may be on the network right now. But at least you have options, and there are many sites which you don't have.
Yeah, and at the moment, lots of companies are moving to passkeys. But then, if your account has a passkey, and the tooling strips out any reference to passkeys before sending it back to the user, you never get the passkey offering, and then it allows you to still log in with username and password and MFA. So you still end up being kind of vulnerable, or you need to train people, which is hard. It's just hard.
So let's just explain how the reverse proxy works.
We should definitely put this slide way in the front.
Yeah, I made this image because of the AITM worker that I created on Cloudflare. So this explains how that was implemented. And it's a pretty simple concept because the victim visits the AITM worker, so the fake phishing site. The AITM worker forwards the request directly to Microsoft. Then the response is as well sent to the AITM worker. And at that point, I'm replacing just a few links in the response. So the Microsoft Online.com links have to be replaced with the URL of your phishing website. That pretty is what you have to do. And of course, you have to capture the username, password, and the cookies from the responses that are being transferred. And then you can post to Teams. So the only thing you have to do is forward all requests, do a little bit of stupid replacements, just very simple replacements, and grab the information out of it that you want. And that's all you have to do to create an AITM framework for Microsoft. So this is pretty simple concept. I thought before I started with building this, I thought it was way harder. Yeah,
you ended up copying somebody else's Python script and then just editing it to do this, right?
Yeah, somebody already published a Cloudflare worker that was a reverse proxy, so I modified that one, of course, because it was Node.js. I don't.
Oh no, I don't know Node.js either.
That was important because of this, because we were already detecting website clones and phishing attacks on regular websites. And how we are doing is that we are placing a pixel in a real website. And whenever this pixel is being loaded from another website, we can alert the website owner that the website is copied manually, or that there may be a reverse proxy in place. And then our colleague Eric came up with the idea, can we also use the same technique to protect Microsoft 365 tenants? And he came up with the Microsoft custom branding CSS. And when he came up with the idea, we were like, hey, if that's going to work, that's really interesting, because then we can protect Microsoft tenants and detect at least the phishing attempts. So we tried this by just adding a custom CSS to a Microsoft login page, pointing to the did someone clone me backend, which allows you to detect the phishing attacks. It triggered a phishing attempt. So here you can see that the reverse proxy was hosted on login.aitm.tag, and that it detected the phishing attempt. So that was pretty cool, because we could use this technique to protect our customers. So we did. And in the first month, we were able to, connect 100 tenants. So we installed the CSS on direct tenants. and we get all the detections that occurred. And well, to be honest, before I started with this, I didn't expect a lot of detection because I still thought AITM was for the specific people that used it and attacked it, and it was not really being used on scale. But in the first month, we had about 162 detections on 100 different tenants. So within a month, I think that's quite a lot. And in 9 months, we have about 1,300 detections. And of course, the detections differ per company. For example, we have a company with about 50,000 employees, and you can see that there are way more detections. Some tenants do not have any detection because they are just really, really small. Here we realized that it was quite a big problem going on. And even, that's why I explained the half implementation, we do not detect all phishing attempts because some phishing frameworks do strip the CSS, of course. So this is just a tip. Now we get a lot of alerts from all the tenants that are protected. And you can also see that from that data, you can see that the phishing attempts are also performed cross tenants. So here you see some things from the database. And you can see that different protected tenants are receiving the same phishing website, the phishing attempt. So you can just see that they are spraying the AITM across different organizations on a big scale and just, try to hit everything. Before creating this software, we didn't know if this is going to be very effective, because of course there's also always a chance for false positives. But this was quite nice because we didn't have a lot of false positives. We just have to filter out a couple of domains, and after that, the detection is very reliable. I will skip this one.
Cool. Well, no, I want to go back. I want to tell this.
Okay.
So it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
I just find this funny. Initially, we were like, oh, there's so many hits. And then we figured out that all these ranges are like Microsoft ranges. And it's just sandboxes hitting you and not the actual end user getting phished. But if you send alerts out based on this, you're dying. Your whole company's under attack. Everybody's gonna die. And there's actually nothing happening. And it's funny to see like Microsoft trying to do a thing too. So for the future, we've seen a huge increase in the offering of the offering of customization Fizzlets, just complete solutions. On the right, you can see like a live.com, just not even targeting companies anymore, but just targeting like end users. So you see that the value of the whole thing is going down because it's a live.com account is way less valuable depending on the user than like the more like Microsoft accounts, Booking.com, hotel owner sites. And then at the same time, because it costs money, there you can see like people asking for generic reverse proxy options. And the next thing, at least in the Netherlands, is going to be bank phishing, where the whole process of asking for sending money or adding an account or adding your bank account to the phone, that's going to be automated via AITM, and that's going to allow them to work more efficiently because currently they're literally screenshotting the QR code and sending it to the user, which is stupid. So that's definitely going to happen. And in conclusion, it's going to be shit for a while, which is always good to have like an uplifting thing. We're going to see a large increase still, not just targeted against companies, but targeting like regular users. Companies will need to like switch how they work with this. Passkeys are very good, but they're not, the user experience is meh. And if you don't enforce your passkeys, once you've configured them, it will definitely leave you vulnerable. We're definitely out of time. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want like the free AITM for Microsoft 365, you can use our free option to detect this type of attack. So thank you very much.
Thank you.